Hello, I'm Simon Adebisi and welcome to highlights of the 2012 Formula SimRacing World Championship. The tight and twisty Hungary ring is the scene for round 7 of the championship, and with a seemingly endless series of corners, this is one of the most difficult tracks on which to overtake, with the rundown into turn 1 one of the only opportunities. This makes qualifying and pit strategy of the utmost importance for the Hungarian Grand Prix, and the drivers will need to negotiate 70 laps of the bumpy and tricky circuit. Defending champion Bono Huis took his 4th pole position in a row, just edging out his main rival Morgan Moran. Jeffrey Rietveld, yet another driver to leave the ATR team, achieved another amazing result for 3rd place on the grid with his new team GT Amiga Racing. Teammate Rasmus Tali also achieved a strong result for 4th ahead of Precision Motorsports reserve driver Jack Keithley. Ash Racing produced 2 WC debutants in the form of Jernij Simonchik and Ville Lepela, with both drivers surprisingly making it into 6th and 7th respectively. Yannick Lapchan continued his strong form to start in 8th, ahead of Twister Racing veteran Fredrik Nilsson in 9th, and Blair Disley made it to Q2 for the first time this season. Renault Room was unable to crack the top 10, settling for 11th, as was Patrick de Wit, only able to qualify in 12th. Uros Musculi has now been promoted to ATR's main team, and he beat out John-Eric Saxon for 13th. Jim Paresis could only achieve the 15th fastest time, and sadly, Netrex were unable to impress, despite Hungary being the home Grand Prix for both of their drivers, with Gogo Baldi in 16th and Peter Varga down in 17th. To the race start, with all the front runners getting a more or less equal launch off the line, it was Jack Keithley who got the best start, cruising past Harley down into the first turn. Weiss took the inside line and defended his position while Keithley tried an inside move on Rietveld. Simonchik outbroke Tali for 5th, while everyone else cleanly made it around the opening corner. Rietveld did his best to fend off Keithley, but the precision driver remained alongside and took the 3rd position through turn 3. Up the hill into the tricky left-hander, 9th place Nelson lost control on exit, and Renault Room had nowhere to go, slamming into the Swede and sending debris everywhere. Several other drivers were unable to avoid the carnage, with Chatsy Bantelis hitting Room's stricken car and causing Gosby to skip across the grass with a damaged side pod. It was of course game over for both Nilsson and Room. Into the chicane, Lapchan touched the grass under braking, and de Wit jumped on the Frenchman, moving up into 8th. And meanwhile, Varga and Paresis fought furiously over 13th. Just behind, Stefan Kanitz's day ended early, with the German spinning and then stalling after just half a lap. Lap 2, and Gogo Baldi managed to get around Uros Musculi for 11th place. And just ahead, Rasmus Tali made a bad mistake running wide through turn 3, swiping the barriers and rejoining the track down in 10th position. Running wide into the final turn, Jack Keithley came under pressure from Jeffrey Rietveld, and the GT Amiga driver used the draft down the main straight to make a pass into the opening corner. Blair Disley was struggling to maintain his 9th place, losing out first to Rasmus Tali, and then Gogo Baldi, with the Hungarian making a bold pass through turn 4. Tali then continued his recovery, chasing down and passing Yannick Lapchan around turn 2. Things soon went sour for debutant Ville Lepela as he made a slight mistake through turn 4, and with Patrick de Wit caught by surprise, the two collided, sending Lepela helplessly off the track, where the Finn sadly stalled his engine. At the front, it was once again a 2-horse race, with both Bono Huis and Morgan Moran leagues ahead of the rest of the field. But on lap 6, Moran was suddenly struck by a strange technical issue, and the Go-Speed car lost all drive, scraping against the barriers. Moran suddenly regained control just as he was passed by Rietveld, but the Frenchman's chances of a win had taken a severe blow. Yannick Lapchan then also suffered a bizarre technical problem, losing drive and being rear-ended by Gogo Baldi. Lapchan's race ended in the barriers, while Baldi lost his front wing with a long drive back to the pit lane. Lap 9, and Rasmus Tali continued his recovery, taking Patrick de Wit into the opening corner for 6th. And meanwhile, Peter Varga moved up into 8th, passing Uros Musculi through turn 2. With the Hungary ring producing severe tyre wear, it wasn't a surprise to see many drivers pitting early on in the race. The pit lane became heavily congested on lap 10, with de Wit and Keithley narrowly avoiding a collision. Morgan Morant had crucially jumped ahead of Jeffrey Rietveld to get back into second place, and de Wit lost substantial time repairing damage from his earlier collision with Lepela. Sebastiano Filosa's debut sadly came to an abrupt end when he dropped the car and collided hard with the barriers, prompting the Italian to retire from the race. At the second stint, Bonnehuis was leading the Grand Prix comfortably by nearly 10 seconds from Morgan Morand. Rietveld was in third ahead of Keithley in fourth and Simonchik in fifth. Rasmus Tali was now back up into sixth, and Peter Varga's early stop had worked wonders, jumping the Hungarian up into seventh place, with Jim Parisas hot on his heels in eighth. The second set of stops saw Parisas nearly stall his engine, and further ahead, Rasmus Tali put in the fast laps when it counted, managing to just beat Simonchik out of pit lane to take over fifth place. With drivers varying from 4 to 6 stop strategies, the true race order became rather muddled. Patrick de Wit was in a virtual ninth position, struggling with damage sustained earlier as he desperately fended off Martin Gosby. However, a small mistake from Gosby allowed Mohamed Patel alongside, and the Twister driver made a daring pass around the outside of turn 4 to take 10th position. Blair Disley was just behind in 12th, with Uros Musculi in 13th. At the front, things were equally complicated. While Bonnehuis was 6 stopping, Morgan Morand was only 5 stopping, and as the two alternated the race lead, it was completely unclear who would eventuate in the top spot. Jeffrey Rietveld had managed to pull out a gap for a comfortable third position, and Jack Keithley was still running in fourth, just ahead of Rasmus Tali and Jernij Simonchik. But it all came undone for the Precision Reserve driver on lap 37 when Keithley touched the grass into turn 8 and the Englishman span off the track, beaching his car in the gravel trap. Meanwhile, in the battle for what was now 6th, Jim Parisas managed to leap ahead of Peter Varga, beating the Hungarian out of pit lane. However, with traffic in the form of Musculi and Disley, Parisas was able to increase his lead, quickly disposing of Musculi, while Varga was held up after a failed passing attempt into the chicane. With Parisas disappearing into the distance ahead, Varga then made a terminal mistake, losing traction out of turn 11 and crunching his front end into the barriers. Now up into 7th, Patrick de Wit looked like he was in a strong position, but with his damaged car, the McCore engine suddenly started to struggle, and on lap 56, it finally gave up the ghost, ending de Wit's race on the sidelines. Martin Gosby then managed to leap back ahead of Mohamed Patel to take what was now effectively 7th place. However, it wasn't until the final stops had been made that the true order began to emerge. Musculi's 4-stop strategy had worked, jumping the Italian up into 7th ahead of both Gosby and Patel. Despite carrying damage from the first lap incident, John-Eric Saxon was now in 10th, chasing down and gaining on Patel, and with just 3 laps to go, disaster struck the Twister Racing team, with Mohamed Patel's rear left brake failing, causing the Briton to drop back behind both Saxon and eventually Blair Disley. Back at the front, and as Bonnehuis emerged from his final stop, he had Morgan Morand directly in his sights, and with 9 laps still remaining, it was clear that there would be a fight for the race win. As Huist edged ever closer, it was clear who had the faster car. On lap 65, Huist got a great drive out of the final turn, and Morand darted to the inside, forcing Huist to attempt an outside pass. As the two went into the corner together, Morand drove his natural line around the corner, forcing Huist off the track. Huist immediately came back, making another passing attempt around turn 2, but he couldn't make the move stick. Huist continued to hound Morand through the middle sector of the circuit, with the pair making contact on 2 occasions. Huist would get one more chance on the following lap, again with a great tow down the main straight. Morand moved to the inside of the track, and as Huist broke for the corner, he tried to switch back to the inside, but Morand kept his line tight, remaining in the top spot, which he would hold all the way to the finish line. However, being less than impressed by Morgan Morand's earlier defensive move, the stewards put the hammer down, and the decision was made to penalise Morand, relegating him back into 2nd place. This promoted Bonnehuis into the race-winning position, effectively taking victory number 6 for the 2012 season. Morand would have to settle for 2nd place, though he made it quite clear that he was very displeased with the penalty. Finishing in 3rd, Jeffrey Rietveld again made a very strong impression, his great drive earning him his first podium in only his 3rd WC start. Rasmus Tali came very close to his teammate towards the end, finishing in 4th place with another solid result. Jernij Simonchik had a fantastic debut, earning an impressive 5th place in his first WC race. Jim Paresis charged up the order from 15th on the grid to claim 6th, and Martin Gosby finished in 7th after passing Uros Musculi in the closing stages of the race after the ATR driver's brakes failed on the penultimate lap. John-Eric Saxon brought his damaged car home in 9th, and Blair Disley picked up the final point in 10th position. So Bono Huisa's lead continues to grow, now 67 points ahead of Morgan Moran. Rasmus Harley has now surpassed Frederick Nilsson for 3rd, though Nilsson is only 9 points behind. The battle for 5th is still wide open, with John-Eric Saxon in a strong position, but he still has Van Dorn, De Wit, Baldi and Mikkonen just 4 points behind. Jeffrey Rietveld's podium has launched the Dutchman into the top 10, not far behind his other competitors. Precision Motorsports have now cracked the 200-point mark and look in a very strong position to take out this year's Constructors' Trophy. Internal problems at ATR have seen multiple drivers leave the Trouble team over the last couple of rounds, and they are now under serious threat from GT Amiga Racing, who achieved a very strong result at Hungary, adding 27 points to their Constructors' total. The recruitment of Morgan Moran has continued to launch Go Speed higher up the order, with the Portuguese outfit now up into 4th position, jumping ahead of Twister, Matcore and Netrex, all of whom failed to score today. Faster Than Speed and AT Racing remain in their respective positions, but Ash Racing have now moved up into 10th, thanks to Simonchik's impressive debut. The next race will be the Spanish Grand Prix, and you can watch that race live as it happens at SimRace TV on the 5th of August at 4 PM GMT. Don't forget to check out Formula Sim Racing on both Facebook and Twitter, and also make sure to join in on the FSR Fantasy League for your chance to win Thrustmaster prizes. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'm Simon out of BCN. We'll see you in 3 weeks' time for the next round of the 2012 Formula Sim Racing World Championship.